For an expert's take, we are joined by Julia Lau. She's a senior fellow and co-coordinator of the Indonesia Studies Programme at ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute. Julia, Mr. Prabowo appeared to be on track to win here. Firstly, your reaction to how the election unfolded. Was it a fair, free, and accountable election?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. So the first general point is it was a massive logistical exercise. And yes, it went ahead fairly well. Whether it was free and fair now, that's the sort of sticking point today. I suspect we will hear from the other two camps because there are already allegations of some unfair behavior or intimidation of voters, and about 668 polling stations had to re-vote, and I'm not quite sure yet what that means and whether it's just a delay in voting time, but they still managed to vote yesterday. We know that there were maybe about 100 that were affected by flooding. So there are logistical issues with a huge, massive electoral exercise like Indonesia has just had. And what we might not remember is the current counts that you see, the percentage wins are based on quick counts, which are counts of sample ballots being counted by the people looking at this. And it's not by any means the final count. So even though Prabowo has made his speech to say, thank you, I've won, it's notable that the other two camps so far have not conceded defeat, have not made their concessionary speeches.
Julia, as it stands, it appears it's third time, the charm for Prabowo. A whole range of factors have been cited, social media, young voters, and so on. But ultimately, do you think it was down to his relationship and that alliance with Jokowi that was the clincher for the former general?
Yeah, so Jokowi, who is which is short for Joko Widodo, his oldest son is running as vice president and who's now presumptive vice president, now that the vote count seems to be on their side. Definitely that Prabowo's popularity and electability ratings went up the minute we knew that Gibran was his running mate. So a lot of young people that scholars have interviewed and surveys have shown they see themselves in Gibran, even though he was born with a sort of silver spoon in his mouth in that sense. They still think he is someone who can speak for their generation. And for this particular election, the younger voters, those under 40, formed actually the majority of the voters, over 50%. So they turned out for him, and for Prabowo, they liked Prabowo's image makeover, his cat videos and the TikToks all worked. But I think the initial doubts that people had that, oh, maybe they won't turn up because it's Valentine's Day, or I understand yesterday was a rainy day in many parts of Indonesia. That didn't seem to deter the supporters for this camp.
And Julia, we know that Prabowo has vowed to finish what Jokowi started, including doubling down on the economic policy, moving Indonesia's capital, and so on. But do you think Prabowo is up to the task? Can he do what Jokowi hasn't done and make some real progress?
So first, I would say Jokowi has made real progress. He has definitely increased the amount of infrastructure in the country and attracted foreign investment. And as far as big projects are concerned, I can foresee that President Prabowo will continue with those. One big question mark was hanging over the shift of the new capital. It looks like now it will proceed since Prabowo is likely to seal this victory when we know the official results on March 20th. That's how long they have to count all the votes and tally them up. So one way of looking at it is the people voted for this person and they see him as a clear continuity, but the unknown in this case would be whether the person Prabowo changes once he gets to that point, right? So he will only take over in October as president formally. And between now and October is a long time. We don't know what the tenor of politics will be, whether he will manage to reconcile with his two opponents, whether the 30% or 40% that did not vote for him and Gibran are happy to then work together with them to achieve all these policy targets.
So Julia, I want to pick up on a point that you alluded to there. Some would argue that, the promises he made to keep doing what Jokowi was doing and the alignment gave him the projected win. But is it clear to you, what he's actually going to do once he's actually sworn in and takes power?
Yeah, that is the hardest question to answer. So intention and what's in the mind of a leader, all political analysts will tell you that's the $1 million or $64 million. In this case, the Nusantara capital is $32 billion question. Prabowo, the person has been in politics and in governance a long, long time. He probably has mellowed somewhat as he has gotten older, but he's still known for a fiery temper when it shows up. He's managed to mostly not show it on the campaign trail. The other part of the equation is we don't know actually what kind of vice president Gibran hopes to be and whether Prabowo, the president, will let Gibran be that. So many people say in this election there were actually 4 candidates. I was just on a panel on Monday at an academic event, and one of my fellow panelists said there was a 4th candidate, which is clearly Widodo. So it could be a situation where it's like what's going on in the Philippines, where after getting through the election and winning it, after about a year or so, the relationship starts to fray, maybe because a president sees, well, I no longer owe you anything and I can do what I want, or I can shed some of the baggage that came with the promise to you or to your father, in this case, to continue with some of the policy. It's anyone's guess. And Prabowo is famously, if you search for him online, you will see the word unpredictable connected to his personality. So I wouldn't put my money on anything in particular, but I think initially he will definitely follow a lot of what Widodo has done, because it shows, this result shows, if it holds, that populism works, that a lot of what Jokowi did in terms of social assistance, direct cash assistance, promised to increase civil service and police salaries, that kind of thing, all that worked to secure them the vote.
All right, Julia, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you very much for your insight this morning. Julia Lau, a senior fellow and co-coordinator of the Indonesia Studies Programme at the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute here in Singapore.